We wondered if they would do it. We wondered how they would justify it, and now we are starting to figure out exactly how the first steps of blocking Donald Trump's tax returns from being released are going to work. And step one is that the U.S. Treasury, led by Steven Mnuchin, is just saying we're not going to release Trump's tax returns to Congressman Richard Neal. To go back a few days, Congressman Richard Neal from Massachusetts used the authority of a 1924 law, which allows any House or Senate committees that are involved in tax writing to request, and really it's more than request, to demand the tax returns of individuals from the United States Treasury. And the immediate question with a deadline of the end of this week was, is Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin going to deny it? Is he going to simply let the deadline expire? Is he going to release the tax returns? And the U.S. Treasury has, in the immediate, denied this request. Last night, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, who of course was handpicked by Donald Trump, as most Treasury secretaries are. That's not an unusual thing, but it's important to bear it in mind when we're talking about the tax returns of the president. Put out a letter saying he needs more time to consider whether he is going to release Trump's tax returns. And this could become a massive, massive legal battle, because at some point, if Mnuchin says his final decision is no, that he's not releasing the tax returns, despite the fact that you can call the law arcane, you can call it whatever you want, but it is the law, and this is something that House and Senate committees that are involved in tax writing can do. He is going to have to legally justify why he is not releasing Donald Trump's tax returns to the House committee, not publicly. Mnuchin said, quote, "The legal implications of this request could affect protections of all Americans against politically motivated disclosures of personal tax information, regardless of which party is in power." Now, that might sound reasonable. You might hear that and say, hey, yeah, we don't want there to be a really easy way to have people's taxes obtained for merely political reasons. But it's not really a reasonable explanation from Steven Mnuchin. Number one is that there is a legal basis for this request from Richard Neal, okay? It's based on a 1924 law that is very binary. It says nothing about the Treasury Secretary gets to evaluate and decide whether a particular request is political. Further, whether a request for taxes is political is completely subjective in nature. It is often, or it is clearly, in the eye of the beholder. But the one part here that I admit is not in the favor of Democrats is that legal experts believe even if you put aside whether the request is political in nature, legal experts are mostly united around the idea that there has to be some defensible legislative reason to see Donald Trump's taxes, okay? The House and Senate are political bodies, so in some sense, everything they do is political in nature, and that's not really a fair standard to apply, but there is a very reasonable question, which is there a legislatively defensible reason why Richard Neal, deserves or is reasonably in a position to request and want to see Donald Trump's taxes? You can say, well, suspicion of financial crimes by Donald Trump is a pretty damn good reason, but we don't know if they actually have the evidence to make that case beyond a reasonable doubt, and also in a way that Trump's Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin would find motivating or convincing. And ultimately, once again, it might end up being a decision made by courts, and that's probably not good news for Democrats, especially when the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, has been completely taken over by Trump appointees, partially thanks to Mitch McConnell blocking Barack Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court 1 year before the 2016 election. So all of this stuff is related. There's no way to just talk about Richard Neal's request without talking about the broader sort of context that is at play here. One legal expert, Thomas Hunger, who's the former general counsel for the House of Representatives, said, quote, "This is uncharted territory." And as I've said before, I want to see the returns. The returns should be released. It shouldn't become a legal battle for the president or a candidate to the presidency to release their tax returns. But if you are waiting around for evidence of criminality from Trump's tax returns, I just don't see it. And I know I've said this a bunch of times now, but I think it's important just to mention it every time. So in 6 months, I'm not misquoted and get 100 angry emails about it. The most likely scenario for me is, number one, Trump is not nearly as wealthy as he claims to be. He's an egomaniac. He doesn't want that to be known, which it potentially would be via the release of his taxes. Number two, Donald Trump pays a pathetically low effective federal tax rate, which again, I don't know how much of a concern that is for him, because he said that that makes him smart. He tries to legally pay as little in taxes as possible, which most people do. And his base wouldn't punish him for paying very little in taxes anyway. So that is a sort of 50-50. And then if you're expecting criminality, I say just forget about it. Get ready to vote in 2020 and let's get this guy out of office. If you disagree with me, if you think that there could be or is likely to be evidence of criminality in Donald Trump's tax returns, I want to hear from you. And I want to hear from you about exactly what crimes you believe could be exposed by Donald Trump's taxes. And if you're going to say money laundering to Russians for New York real estate, that's not going to be on Donald Trump's personal taxes. And it's questionable whether it would even be outlined so specifically in Donald Trump's corporate taxes. But I want to hear from you either way. I'm on Twitter at @DPakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. One of today's sponsors is a company I'm really excited about because they're big supporters of progressive media, but it's also a service I've actually been using for a while in my personal life. It's a language learning service called Linguist, and they're letting our audience try it out for free. You don't even have to enter your credit card number. Just go to linguist.com/Pakman. Linguist was created by one of the physicists who discovered the Higgs boson. And he designed Linguist to help himself and others learn languages as efficiently and thoroughly as possible using artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms. And that's what makes Linguist so different from all of the other language learning apps out there. Linguist has used billions of data points from its learners to figure out how the human brain actually works when it's learning a language and storing memories. It mixes new words that you haven't seen yet with the words you still need to repeat. And the magic happens when it spaces these repetitions, refreshing a word at just the right moment so that you don't waste any time in your learning process. It's fast, it's simple. There's no fluff, no crazy verb conjugation charts you have to memorize. It's just elegant and proven to be one of the most efficient ways to learn a language. And it also has voice recognition capabilities, which is super convenient, especially when you're using the app on your phone. Go try it on your browser or mobile device. See for yourself. It's available in Spanish, French, German, and Russian. If you're trying to learn one of these 4 languages and you're looking for an evidence-based method to take your skills to the next level, you should check it out, and you can do it totally free. Like I said, no credit card required to try it out. Just click the link underneath this video.